Most people think reading someone means listening carefully. It doesn't. Words are the outfit. The shadow is the body underneath. You see it every day. The polished coworker who says all the right things in the meeting, then goes weirdly cold when someone else gets praised. The friend who keeps repeating, "I'm happy for you," with a smile that lands half a second too late. The date who talks like a therapist, uses perfect emotional vocabulary, nods at the right times, but somehow leaves you feeling like your skin just spent an hour in a room with no oxygen. That feeling is data. And the first thing you need to understand is this. You are not paranoid for noticing what doesn't match. You are not too sensitive. You are not broken because somebody's tone, timing, face, silence, or tiny little pause told you more than their sentence did. Your nervous system is not a dramatic poet. It is a pattern-detecting animal. A lot of people grew up learning to distrust that animal. We were taught to respect statements over signals, to trust official language, to believe the email more than the room, the apology more than the eyes, the relationship status more than the atmosphere, the performance review more than the manager's jaw tightening every time your name comes up. But human beings leak, constantly. And if you want to read people like a book, you have to stop reading the printed text and start reading the smudges in the margins. That is where Jung becomes useful. Because Jung had this idea of the shadow. And the shadow is not some cartoon villain hiding in the basement of the mind. It is the part of a person they cannot comfortably admit is theirs. The traits they reject, bury, polish over, moralize against, or project onto everybody else. The shadow is everything a person's ego says, "That's not me," even when it absolutely is. Not always in action, but in desire, in fantasy, in resentment, in hunger, in fear. And this is why people are so readable if you stop listening like a lawyer and start watching like a storm tracker. Because what people repress does not disappear. It comes out sideways. That's the rule. If someone cannot own their aggression, it leaks out as sarcasm, jokes, spiritual superiority, passive delays, strategic forgetfulness. If they cannot own envy, it leaks out as criticism, fake concern, lukewarm praise, nitpicking your choices, acting confused by your success. If they cannot own desire, it leaks out as moral judgment, random disgust, weird obsession, "I just think it's wrong" speeches with too much emotional voltage in them. If they cannot own weakness, it leaks out as contempt for vulnerable people. If they cannot own dependency, it leaks out as worship of independence so extreme it starts sounding like emotional tax fraud. The shadow always collects its debt. So when you read people, don't ask only, "What are they saying?" Ask, "What are they forbidden from saying?" What part of themselves are they spending energy trying not to reveal? Where is the pressure in this person? Because pressure leaves fingerprints, and the fingerprints are usually tiny. A micro-expression, a half-second face glitch before the social mask comes back online. A smile that only happens in the mouth, not the eyes. A flash of contempt, a jaw clench. A pause that arrives in the wrong place. People think lying looks dramatic. It usually doesn't. It usually looks like a very small traffic jam between the face and the words. Now, this does not mean every twitch is a confession. Let's stay sane. A single signal means almost nothing. Anybody can be tired, anxious, distracted, overloaded, socially awkward, hungry, ashamed, intimidated. You do not read people by collecting one spooky clue and acting like a detective in a cheap thriller. You read people by clusters, patterns, repetition, mismatch over time. That's the difference between intuition and fantasy. Fantasy sees one raised eyebrow and writes a whole Netflix series. Intuition watches 10 moments quietly and notices the same fracture line every time. That fracture line is where the shadow lives. Take the person who is disturbingly nice. Not kind, nice, there's a difference. Kindness has weight in it. It can say no. It can disappoint you. It can survive honesty. Niceness is often a costume rented by unexpressed hostility. A lot of nice people are not soft. They are scared. They learned that direct anger is dangerous, so they built a personality out of pleasantness and secret scorekeeping. You can spot them by the lag. They agree too fast, smile too early, say no worries with a dead look behind the eyes, then punish indirectly. That doesn't make them monsters, it makes them split. The shadow here is aggression that was never allowed a healthy shape. So now it comes out dressed like manners. Or look at the person who constantly analyzes everybody else, always diagnosing, always decoding, always posting little sermons about toxic energy and protecting peace and choosing alignment. Because people often build temples around the gods, they secretly offend. The person obsessed with honesty may be fighting a secret relationship with manipulation. The person constantly preaching loyalty may be full of betrayal impulses. The person advertising humility may have an ego the size of a shopping mall. The person obsessed with being unbothered is very often bothered down to the bone. Again, the shadow does not vanish. It hires a publicist. And once you understand this, disturbing behavior starts looking less random. That cold stare after your good news, maybe not hatred, maybe humiliation. Your progress touched the part of them that feels left behind. That weird mocking tone when you get excited about something, maybe not cruelty for sport. Maybe desire turned sour. They lost contact with their own aliveness, and your enthusiasm feels like somebody dancing in front of a locked door, that person who keeps subtly sabotaging intimacy. Forgetting plans, staying vague, opening up then disappearing, saying, "I'm just bad at this stuff," while keeping one foot out the door. A lot of the time that's not mystery, that's fear wearing a cool jacket. People admire avoidant behavior because it can look powerful, detached, unreachable, premium. But a lot of detachment is just panic with good posture. The shadow there might be need, dependence, longing, a terrifying hunger for closeness the person cannot bear to feel directly, so they kill the lights before anyone can see it. This is where most people get confused. They think reading others is about becoming cynical. It isn't. It's about becoming accurate without becoming cruel. Because once you see the shadow, you also see the wound protecting it. The controlling person may be hiding chaos. The arrogant person may be hiding humiliation. The chronic flirt may be hiding emptiness. The always busy productivity machine may be running from worthlessness so deep they need 12 calendar invites just to avoid hearing the silence. And underneath all that efficiency is a terrified question. If I stop performing, do I still count? That person may judge lazy people non-stop, but what they really hate is their own exhausted, human, unproductive self. That is the shadow, not evil, exiled humanity. And this is why the best readers of people are not the most suspicious. They are the least naive about how much effort it takes to be a socially acceptable person. Everyone edits. Everyone. The question is not whether someone has a mask. The question is what the mask is hiding and what it costs them to keep wearing it. Watch the cost. That's one of the sharpest tools you have. What tires a person out? What kind of situation makes their face slip? When do they suddenly become rigid, over-explaining, overly polished, too casual, too funny, too spiritual, too intellectual? Overcompensation is a flare in the dark. A person who acts impossibly calm in conflict may not be calm. They may be frozen. A person who brags constantly may not feel superior. They may be using noise to drown out internal collapse. Look for places where the performance gets expensive. That's where the truth starts sweating. And then there's silence. Silence is one of the most underrated forms of speech. When you say something important, pay attention to the silence that follows. Does it feel warm, like thoughtfulness? Or cold, like somebody shutting doors inside themselves? People reveal themselves not only by what they avoid saying, but by what they refuse to ask. Someone who never asks follow-up questions about your pain may not be bad with emotions. They may be defending themselves from their own buried pain. Someone who never celebrates you in detail may not just be distracted. They may be unable to metabolize another person's brightness without comparing it to their own shadow ledger. And that ledger is always there. That's another dark truth. People are constantly doing invisible accounting. Who has more freedom? Who gets more attention? Who is desired? Who is safe? Who can fail without losing love? Who can speak directly? Who is allowed to take up space without apologizing for the furniture? A quick contempt smirk, a delayed clap, a compliment with a splinter hidden inside it, a sudden subject change when your name gets praised, a dramatic yawn when someone else is being seen, a joking insult delivered the exact moment they feel small. That is the shadow trying to regain balance. Not gracefully, just effectively enough. Now here's the dangerous part. Once you get good at this, you will be tempted to use it like a weapon, to win, to dominate, to become the smartest predator in the room. That path turns you into the very thing you think you've outgrown. Because reading people without compassion becomes surveillance. Reading people with compassion becomes understanding, and understanding is different. Understanding says, I see the envy, but I also see the grief under it. I see the control, but I also see the terror. I see the vanity, but I also see the starving child inside the adult costume. That does not mean tolerating everything. It does not mean staying close to harmful people. It does not mean explaining away betrayal, manipulation, or emotional pollution. It means you stop taking every strange behavior personally. That alone can change your life. Because most people are not reacting to you. They are reacting to the part of themselves you accidentally touched. Your confidence may trigger their buried shame. Your boundaries may trigger their buried helplessness. Your warmth may trigger their buried need. Your talent may trigger their unlived life. Your honesty may trigger the entire architecture of lies they need to survive their self-image. So the room gets weird. And if you don't understand shadow, you blame yourself. You think you said it wrong. You think you were too much, too sharp, too soft, too visible. No, sometimes you were just a mirror at an inconvenient angle. And people do not always forgive mirrors, especially when they've spent years building a self they can tolerate looking at. This is why some of the most disturbing behaviors in others are actually failed acts of self-protection. Gossip can be displaced envy. Smugness can be panic. Chronic irony can be fear of sincerity. Hyper-independence can be abandoned need. Moral superiority can be desire put in a cage. You stop asking, why are people so insane? And start asking, what are they defending? That question will teach you more than any lie detector fantasy ever could. Because the real secret to reading people is not spotting deception. It is spotting division. Where is this person split against themselves? Where are they at war with their own hunger, anger, fear, tenderness, ambition, dependence, sexuality, grief, fragility? That war writes itself on the face. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough in the eyes when they lose control of the script for half a second. Enough in the mouth when they say, I'm fine. Enough in the body when they claim not to care. Enough in the silence when your existence threatens the version of themselves they are trying to maintain. And if you want one final rule, it's this. Believe patterns, not promises. Anybody can say the right line. We live in an age where people can download emotional vocabulary like a phone update. They can talk boundaries, attachment, healing, authenticity, leadership, empathy, purpose. They can sound like a podcast with perfect lighting. Then their micro-expressions tell the old story. Their timing tells the old story. Their behavior under stress tells the old story. Their face when they are not being watched tells the old story. Always trust the story that costs them control. That's usually the real one. Because words are managed, the shadow is leaked. And maybe the most unsettling part is this. The better you get at reading others, the less innocent you feel about yourself. You start catching your own delayed smile, your own fake indifference, your own tiny flare of envy, your own jokes that were not really jokes. That's the price of real observation. It removes your fantasy that the problem is always out there. It shows you that you also have a shadow. You also perform. You also leak. You also turn pain into style sometimes. You also hide your hungers under principles, your fear under taste, your grief under busyness. So reading people like a book eventually becomes reading humanity like a confession. Messy, defended, partially erased, full of edits in the margins. Because when a person shows no shadow, it usually means only one thing. It has gone underground. And whatever goes underground does not become harmless. It becomes organized. So watch the flicker before the smile, the contempt before the compliment, the silence after your joy, the body when the mouth is being professional, the joke that carries a knife wrapped in confetti, the person who never admits wanting anything, the one who criticizes in the exact shape of their own hunger, the one who keeps telling you who they are instead of letting you feel it. Read the glitches, read the overcorrections, read the absences, read what the room feels like after their sentence ends. That's the shadow observation, not magic, not cynicism, just the brutal art of noticing that people say one thing, leak another, and hide the truest parts where they think nobody is looking. But the body is always looking. and if you get quiet enough, it will tell you the whole story.